Hey guys, it's Allie. Welcome back to Infertile AF, the podcast. This is episode 73 called Monique. Guys, before we get started, I wanted to tell you that I was just on the Fertility Rally feed, which is part of our community at Fertility Rally, where people can post things, ask questions, give each other advice, give each other support. We have almost 150 members now, and we're so excited about this amazing community that is growing and building, and we would love for you to be a part of it. So if you need some extra support, if you're looking for your people, we might be your people. So check out fertilityrally.com. In addition to the community, we've got so much other content. We've got videos and podcasts and events, weekly support group every Wednesday night, which has been incredible, themed events too, so many blog posts, expert advice, etc., etc. So Blair and I have built a place that we really think has everything under one roof. So check it out at fertilityrally.com and let me know if you have any questions. We hope to see you there. So speaking of Fertility Rally, my next guest is a Fertility Rally member. Her name is Monique Farook, and she's incredible. We met through, this amazing social media community on Instagram. We had her on one of our Fertility Rally virtual events about infertility and women of color. And she's got a podcast called Infertility and Me. And today she's going to tell us her story about having her son. So it started out with some tubal blockage and unsuccessful IUI. She's going to talk about experiencing prejudice at the fertility clinic, which is complete bullshit and needs to stop. She is going to tell us about her terrible 2-week wait, what happened when she finally did become pregnant, and then her pretty traumatic birth story. So her son is okay now, spoiler alert. But she's just incredible. Monique, I really love and adore you, as you know. So I want to thank her for sharing her story. And without further ado, this is Monique's infertility story. Thank you again for doing this. I'm so glad I got to meet you recently at our Fertility Rally event virtually.
Yeah, pleasure.
That was wonderful. And I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. But let's start at the beginning with you. So tell me about growing up. Did you always want to be a mom?
I didn't, as a kid and as an adolescent, even as a teenager, I never pictured myself with a baby on my shoulders, or being pregnant. I didn't start visualizing it until probably like going into my mid-20s. And I was like, maybe I do want kids, and I was on birth control from like late teens all the way up until a year and a half before I met my husband. So I did everything to prevent it. And I didn't see myself as being a mom. I really didn't. And it's so funny because like I would do it all over again. You know what I mean? So yeah, I never saw myself as a mom. I was kind of like selfish in that way because I was like, I just want to do what I want to do and maybe make a couple dollars along the way,
Right. And where did you grow up?
So I grew up in a town called Howard County. Actually, it's called Elk Ridge, but it's in Howard County, Maryland.
Okay.
And it's like maybe 20 minutes away from Baltimore and about 45 to an hour from DC. So we're like in central Maryland, I guess you could say. But that's where I grew up from 10 until I left home at 23. So my parents still live there. They still have their home that I grew up in there. And my husband and I live about 30 minutes from my parents south.
That's nice to be that close.
We're still really close. Yep.
Yeah.
Still really, really close. Yeah.
So how did you and the hubby meet?
So we met in my hometown in Howard County. He approached me. I was out one day and it was like a wrap from there. It was like no special love story. It was, it wasn't all eventful and, I hear some really incredible stories about how people meet, like they met because she was a nurse and he was at the hospital. She was caring for him at, things like it wasn't like that. It was like very casual, very natural and very easy. And I really appreciated that part about our relationship because everything was just so natural and it all came together just just the way we both wanted and we both visualized. And so it was us coming together. It was like kindred spirits.
How long before you guys decided you were going to spend the rest of your lives together?
So probably about 6 months in,
Nice.
And we did have a little bit of a break during the 23 months that we were together, because I had actually gotten married very early, and I was married for about barely over a year. And so when I met my husband, I had left the first husband 6 months prior. Mm-hmm. And so when I met hubby, I wasn't divorced completely yet. I was still in the separation part. And in Maryland, you have to wait a year before you can get your finalized of divorce and everything. So in the middle of the first year, we kind of felt like it was the right fit. We had a lot of the same goals. We had a lot of the same characteristics. We just had a lot in common, a lot. We're very different, but we had so much in common. So we took a break. I got the first divorce finalized during that break, and then we got back together. And then a year and a half later, we got married. So it was like a total of 23 months.
Okay. And when did the having kids come into the conversation? Was it before you got married, or did you know like his goals in terms of family as well?
Oh, yeah. He definitely wanted children. And that was something we discussed prior to marriage. And I was fine with that. At that point, I was like, yeah, maybe I do want a baby. It might be a little cute baby too. So
you're like, you're pretty cute. So.
Yeah, you're kind of cute. So I'm going to, maybe that'd be nice. Right. So so before we got married, we knew we would have at least one. Ideally, we wanted two. And if he was real extra nice to me, I might give him 3. That was always our running joke.
Right. I love it. I love it.
We definitely did know going into the marriage that we wanted children.
Yeah. So tell me what happened when you guys started to try?
I had been off of birth control over a year after we got married. And the first 2 years, we just kind of spent just enjoying each other and all that good stuff. And then after the 2-year mark, we started talking about maybe it was time to try. I was about 29, 28 at the time, and it just never happened. And it was so crazy because in total, we had been together for 4 years. Mm-hmm. And I had never been pregnant before. And even with my first husband, I wasn't on birth control either with him. Mm-hmm. And I had gave myself a break. And so I just never had been pregnant. And so I was starting to think that something was wrong, that maybe something with the birth control happened. It was messing with my hormones and stuff. So after 2 years, I was like, we got serious and we're like, okay, we're going to start trying. So we did for a whole year and nothing happened. Mm-hmm. And that's when I went to go see a fertility specialist for the first time. So I was about 29 years old back then.
How did you feel like that year that it wasn't happening? Like what kind of toll did it take on you emotionally?
I was just like, what the F is going on? This is crazy. Is it me? Is it him? He had never had any kids. So it was like, what the flip is going on? And he was in a very long-term relationship before he met me. So, and he told me that she had been pregnant and that she had miscarried, but I wasn't there. So I don't know. I was like, maybe he was lying. I don't know, and it was just so weird because I was like something, I don't know. I just had this intuitive thing going on where I felt like it was me, even though I had doubts. Maybe it was him, maybe something in his genes he didn't know about because he's not very close to his family. So all of their history and things like that. So it was we were just going back and forth. Well, maybe it's you, or maybe it's me, or maybe it's both of us, and it wasn't like we were doing it in a bashing kind of way. Like, no, it's you. No, we weren't doing that.
Yeah.
But we were just flipping ideas back and forth. We just didn't know. We just didn't know. It was like the strangest feeling of having that diagnosis. And I hate the fact that we have to wait so long before a specialist will essentially see us.
Right. So did they give you the line? Yeah. Did they give you the spiel? Like you can't, try for a year before you come in?
Yep.
I feel like that's such bullshit. Like people should.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I get it, like with the doctors, because they just kind of give you this blanket statement, but everybody's so different. And sometimes you really just need to get in there right away and figure out what's going on. I feel like as women, sometimes we know that there's a problem, and to have to wait is like torture.
Mm-hmm. And it's so funny because even like your OBGYN, he or she won't give you a referral for a specialist. Right. To even get tested, or they won't refer you to a radiologist if it hasn't been 6 months to a year, depending on your age. Like you can't even do anything. Like I got to pay all this money to see a radiologist if I don't have a referral. And then maybe the radiologist won't even see me without the referral. Right. It's just so crazy. And I feel like if a woman has never been pregnant before, especially if you've never been pregnant before, we should be able to get seen just as fast, 6 months, period, and go from there. Because, there's medical issues that need to be treated a lot of the time. So definitely.
So what happened when you guys finally did go in to see somebody? Were they able to diagnose something right away, or what did they say?
So I had the full workup of the blood work. He had a sperm analysis, and then I had the HSG, and the HSG revealed right tubal blockage for me. And he was okay. He was fine. He didn't have any issues. And so it was right tubal blockage for me. And we had an IUI, and it was unsuccessful. And I never went back to that particular RE.
Why? Were you just not happy with the treatment?
That was actually the RE clinic that I had told you guys about before, where I had the issue with the receptionist and the nurses and the doctor.
Oh, yeah. Can you tell me that story again? Yeah. So we talked about this on our Women of Color and Infertility event at Fertility Rally, which you and Nichelle Sublett were on, which was so awesome. Can you just please, for people that maybe didn't hear it, tell that story again, if you don't mind?
Yeah. So my first RE clinic, it's very small, and it wasn't a franchise company like a Shady Grove type of thing. They had a couple of locations in surrounding areas, but it was a very, very, very small clinic, very private, very small town, and it wasn't a whole lot of foot traffic in there. And so I went in and I just didn't feel welcome at all. Like and I watched, and the reason I had to make it very clear when we did the live is that I didn't want people to think that I was like just making stuff up, and when something like that happens to you, it's not something that you forget about. You remember it, and you remember it very vividly.
Completely. Yeah.
And because I actually had somebody come to me in DM and it's like, there's no way you remember that from 4, 5, 6 years ago. Yes, I do. Yeah. I definitely do.
What? I don't even understand that. Like, of course you would.
Crazy sometimes, and then with all that's going on, people are saying things and doing things that they probably normally wouldn't do. But yeah, so I'm in the clinic. I'm in the middle of work and everything too. So I'm like, I'm fully dressed. I'm looking good. I'm smelling good. All this stuff, looking presentable. Like I had a couple of dollars I could spend in there, So I'm thinking I'm okay. So I go in and I'm not thinking about anything, on the terms of prejudices and racism. So I go in, I'm smiling at the lady at the receptionist, and she's like trying to like shush me away. Like she wasn't welcoming, and she didn't want to look me in my eyes, and it was so incredibly weird, but so common at the same time. It's like really ridiculous. And I knew I wasn't going crazy because, like I told everyone in the event, that when another lady came in after me, a Caucasian lady came in after me, her whole face lit up. It was a completely different experience for that woman and her husband.
It's infuriating.
And the same thing. Yeah. And the same thing with the nurses when they came out to get her and all that. And so, everybody in there is just like, nobody wanted me there. You know what I mean? And it was just,
yeah,
it was so weird. And I was like, you know what? I don't even know if I want to do this, because if I go to another clinic and they treat me like this, forget about it. We just won't have it.
Well, it's so interesting that you say that, because obviously this is a very common thing and we need to be better as a society. It's ridiculous that happens. And yesterday I was interviewing, do you know Michelle Buteau, the comedian and actress? So she was telling me she went through several rounds of IVF too. And she was telling me the same, that when she went into the clinic, not only would they she asked the doctor, who was white, some, question, and he was like, I don't like your tone, and like snapped back at her. And then she said when she would go out to pay, they would always ask her for her credit card, like right away, like as if she was going to like take off without paying or something.
Wow.
And then she's married to a white dude. And she said that when he would go to the appointments with her, they treated her totally differently.
Wow. Yeah. I can believe that.
Yeah.
I definitely can see that. I've dealt with that with my husband being South Asian from Bangladesh within the South Asian community, and being around people the same descent or the same region as him, treating me differently when he's around and when he's not around. So I totally understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could see that really.
That makes me sick to my stomach though. Yeah. It's just like, what the hell?
And then you keep it moving, because at the end of the day, it's like, do I really want to give it that much energy in this moment? Because if I go off, if I say something and they don't like it, or if I come off as too passionate, then I'm going to be looked at as this angry Black woman.
Right.
being that way. But at the same time, it's like, you got to advocate for yourself. So I just never gave them any more of my money. And that was my way of dealing with the situation.
Good for you. Yeah.
And I found my tribe at another clinic,
Right. Yeah.
I couldn't have had a better experience, truly. Really.
So tell me about the good clinic where they weren't a-holes.
Yeah, right. So they were like awesome. And they have like 4 different locations here in the DC metro area. And I love them to death. And they have a very diverse staff. And that was something that I was paying attention to the second time around that I didn't do in the first time. I just wasn't thinking about it at all. And so when I was on their website initially, I saw that they had a very diverse staff from the doctors on down to receptionists. And so that made me feel comfortable. And I was like, this might be it. And when I went in, it was. And I was always treated with respect and everything. And everybody was always so nice and curt and caring and everything. And so it was just a really pleasant experience. And I definitely would go back if we decided to have a second one. That would be like, there's no other place I'm going.
Right. So what did they start doing in terms of treatment and like protocol and stuff for you?
Since it had been 4 years since the IUI and then going back for a second clinic, it was 2012 the first time and the second time was 2016. And I had to do everything all over again because the time frame had been so long. And so the HSG revealed that the tubal blockage was gone, but my blood work revealed that I had hypothyroidism, and the sonogram revealed that I had uterine polyps. And I also had cervical polyps. But the uterine polyps were something that they were more concerned about more than anything. And so I had to have those removed, as well as be on a 3-month treatment plan for levothyroxine to treat the hypothyroidism before we could get anything. So it was like May, and then it was, I went to see her the end of April, beginning of May 2016, and it was July before I had my first egg retrieval.
Okay. So can you tell me about the retrieval process and like going on all the meds and stuff? How did your body react to that? Physically and mentally?
Yeah, sure. So I had a less invasive form of IVF. I had what's called natural cycle or mild IVF, and I didn't have as many medications as everyone else has. So I had the estrogen, the progesterone, and then baby aspirin, and I had my trigger shots, and I had my hormone suppressing shot as well. But it was very, 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 very minimal compared to a lot of other women in the community. Very minimal. And it was only because they offer it because one is cheaper. It's only about $15,000 for the whole cycle. And if you get your periods regularly and you don't have endometriosis or anything else like that, that can affect your periods. Now, hypothyroidism can affect your period, but for me, it did not. And so I was a candidate for the natural cycle IVF, and I had good egg quality at the time as well. So all of those things made me a good candidate for it. And they only take 1 egg at a time, and which is another reason why I didn't have so many medications, because I'm not producing so many follicles for more than 1 egg to be implanted back into the uterus.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was like really, really, really less invasive, but still very nerve-wracking, still very, I wasn't sad. I was hopeful, and I didn't, at this point, because it had been so far in between 2012 and 2016, I had done a lot of self-work in that 4-year period.
Like and what? So,
like all types of things, girl, like getting really deep with meditation and my mental health practices, as far as it's just exercising, getting those endorphins going. I went pescatarian, then vegetarian, then vegan. By the time I had my first egg retrieval, I was completely vegan. And
wow. Are you still?
I am not still, because when I was in my second trimester, he wanted meat. So I was eating steak.
You got to listen to your body.
Yes, I was eating steak and potatoes. Like the first trimester, I couldn't stand the smell of meat. I couldn't stand the smell of it. Oh my gosh, it was terrible. But during that 4-year period, I did a lot to just make my body strong. And I just wanted to be able to carry this baby, because that's another issue with hypothyroidism that I didn't know at the time, was that you can miscarry very, very easily with hypothyroidism if it's not treated. And so I just wanted my body to be strong. And so I was doing everything. I was always a prayer kind of gal. And so I just upped my game and started researching and learning about meditation. It was something that I had never tried before. So I really got deeply into that. And then I got deep into mindfulness. And it wasn't like I was using affirmations to tell my subconscious mind, or to trick my subconscious mind into believing in my body, believing that I could get pregnant and I could hold this baby. It was more so just about me wanting to keep my freaking sanity, period.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
It was more so that more than just having a baby, but I was going hard with the exercise. I probably exercised a little bit too hard. I was like going insane with exercise. I'm talking 6 days a week, weight training and cardio. Like I was so tiny and so fit. It was just like, it was crazy. It was so crazy. But when it came time for the egg retrieval, my doctor told me she didn't want me doing any of that. I wasn't allowed to do anything.
Right. Yeah, of course. Of course.
Yeah.
Guys, I want to tell you about these new customized vitamins I've been taking from a wellness brand called Care Of. You take a short online quiz and answer questions about your diet, your health goals, and your lifestyle, like how much sleep do you get? How often do you work out? Do you follow any specialty diets? Are you concerned about your hair, skin, and nail health? And I was like, not enough, not enough, not enough, and yes, definitely. And then about a week later, you get this package of vitamins and supplements delivered right to your door. And they have these little daily packs, which are super cute and easy to throw in your bag, travel with. And then they have this booklet that explains what you've been sent and what each pill does and why it's been sent to you. But my favorite thing that I've been using, and I already ran out of them, so I need to get more, are these little quick sticks, they're called, of caffeine. So it's a powder that you pour into your mouth and it tastes really good and you don't need water and you just swallow it right down and you get this little caffeine jolt. They also have really yummy protein powders that are made of wholesome ingredients like organic cocoa, pink Himalayan sea salt, and other really yummy good stuff. So that being said, Care Of is offering you guys, my listeners, 50% off your first order. So go to takecareof.com and enter the code InfertileAF50. Again, it's 50% off first order. Go to takecareof.com and enter the code InfertileAF50. Thank you. So what about your husband? How is he feeling through all of this?
That was another reason why we waited 4 years too, because he wanted to wait and wanted to see if we could continue to do it naturally and see if something would happen, even because I had the good tube, I had the left good tube and it was, that's enough to get pregnant and everything. So we really honestly weren't ready to move forward with IVF after that IUI. And because we were young, we thought we still had time and we thought we could do it, and we were so ambitious about trying to do it naturally. And even though he didn't have a diagnosis, it's like, well, I still can't get my wife pregnant, you know what I mean? So there was a lot of dealing with that, and I had to learn how to not be selfish and learn to also cater to him and reassure him that it's not like he's like, I know it's not your fault, but it's like, it's still like, this is some bullshit. We can't get pregnant naturally, so he still was dealing with that too.
Did you guys have some hard conversations? Because I know my husband and I certainly did.
Yeah. Some conversations where it's like, do I even really want to say that right now? Or should I say that? It's like almost walking on eggshells, and it really tests your marriage. And it really shows you whether you truly have unconditional love for someone.
For sure.
Yeah.
Do you mind if we talk a little bit more about, from our event the other night, you and Nichelle did a great job of kind of helping us understand the core of what, women of color go through with infertility and how culturally it can be really tricky. People don't want to talk about it. Can we touch on that a little bit and let me know your feelings on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know anyone who had suffered infertility except for one person. It was my aunt. And they chose not to move forward with IVF. They had other goals financially that they wanted to achieve, and that was more important. And so it wasn't until, I knew before, but I never really talked to her about it until I had my own journey. And even then, I didn't really lean on her until the year that I got pregnant with my son. So those 3 years prior, I didn't take advantage of her in that way. And we had different views about things too, as well. So it was like, that was another reason I didn't go to her, even though I know she had struggled before to get pregnant with her husband and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like this kind of silent suffering type of thing. And, you know, I always had this feeling like nobody was going to believe me if I told them, you know what I mean? And so
why do you think that?
Because I've had concerns with doctors and concerns that I shared with like family members and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they just brush it off and they be like, girl, you'll be fine. You know what I mean? And the doctor will say, let's just wait and see what happens. There's no urgency for finding out what's really going on. Like I had a conversation with a young woman and she was complaining of all of this pain that she was feeling during her menses and even after her menses were over. And no one took the time and took the urgency to have her checked thoroughly. And in the Black community, everybody around me that I knew that I was close to had children.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother on my dad's side, she had 7 children that she birthed naturally, and she had 1 miscarriage, she told me a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
On my mom's side of the family, same thing. 4 kids, 1 miscarriage. You know, it was, and I have cousins, crazy amounts of cousins on my dad's side. Mm-hmm. Everybody had at least 2 to 3 kids, if not more.
Right.
And so, like my one of my uncles, he's gone on now, but his first wife, they couldn't get pregnant naturally when they first got married. They adopted and they got pregnant right after that. So it was like stories like that were happening where people were still getting through and still getting pregnant naturally. And so infertility was never a part of my vocabulary. And it was not something that I knew a lot about prior to trying to conceive. Mm-hmm. And I was so, even though I felt like there was something going on with me, I was so deathly afraid that I was going to be one in 8.
Yeah. And were you also afraid to even broach the topic with like your friends and family members? Because it was just like kind of taboo.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there was nobody that could I felt like there was nobody that could relate to me. And my aunt who went through it, she lived in a completely different state. So having a conversation on the phone was nice and all like that. I just didn't take advantage of it. I didn't really think anybody would care because they would always say, oh, y'all are young. Y'all got time. You don't have to rush it. People are waiting longer. It was always those type of comments and things from people around us. And it was just so isolating to have this diagnosis for 4 years and holding on to it. Because I didn't speak about it to anyone but my mother and my father at the time, and with hubby, of course. So it was just like this so isolating and just walking around with this freaking skeleton in my closet, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Was that part of the? So I want to talk about obviously what happened next in your journey and having your little guy, but I also want to talk about your podcast because you started this podcast, Infertility and Me, which is so amazing. And tell me about the impetus behind that. Was it because nobody was talking about it and you're trying to shatter those stigmas?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And originally the podcast was going to be called Infertility and Me, the Brown Girl Experience. Because when I did the searches on podcasts, Apple Podcasts for infertility, I think Erica McAfee and then the Infertility podcast came up, and those were the 2 brown faces that I saw. Mm-hmm. But Erica McAfee's podcast deals a lot with laws, you know, and she does include infertility as well, but she deals a lot with laws, and which is amazing. And I didn't see anybody that looked like me, and so I had no problem listening to other people's podcasts. That was never the issue. It just wasn't being tackled in the same way by brown women. It really wasn't. Yeah. It really wasn't. And so that was part of the inspiration behind Infertility and Me. And because I come from such a diverse background in town where I grew up, I was like, you know what, maybe I'll just call it Infertility and Me. That way anybody feels welcome. LGBTQ, anybody.
Yes.
And I didn't want to single out just brown skinned women and Black women. I wanted to be true to who I am. And I am a diverse person.
Right.
I like diversity. I cherish it. And it's so important. And so that's why I just took off the Brown Girl Experience part and just left the Infertility and Me.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you see it, you don't know anything other than what it says. And it's infertility is the main topic.
Right. And tell me, what kind of feedback have you gotten from people? I mean, I'm sure, we both have podcasts, obviously. I get amazing letters all the time. I'm sure you do too. Can you tell me about some of the people that have reached out that are listeners and that you've helped?
A lot of the listeners that have contacted me have been contacting me on Instagram.
Yeah.
A lot of the emails I get are from people who want to come on. But as far as listeners who are going through it, a lot of them will DM me from their personal Instagram pages because they don't have fertility pages. And so they will tell me that, oh my gosh, I just thank you for doing the work, basically. And especially from brown women. And a lot of them have told me, like, I haven't found another podcast that's talking about it the way you do, and being a brown Black woman in America. And I've gotten a lot of South Asian women who are from regions like my husband who have felt a connection to me because they don't have anybody in their community talking about it either. And it's very taboo for that community as well, whether they live here or out of the country in a different continent. And so it's been really, every time I feel like I don't have any more to give, somebody comes to me and it's like an angel comes to me and they're giving me the extra push that I need to keep going, because it's very difficult having a toddler and still trying to do all the things in life and continue to run the podcast and giving myself in that way, and then dealing with the loss of my business too at the same time the last 8 weeks. So it's been
right.
All the angels have been coming to me lately. You know what I mean? It's so crazy. So
yes. Well, it's so great that you're just, the diversity thing. I feel the same way with you. It's like, we're all in this together. So I love what you're doing. But I'd love to go back to what was going on with you and your story. So tell me about where we were at, chronologically. So you'd gone in doing kind of what, I don't know if it's the same as mini IVF, but IVF light. It's got lots of different terms. So you're going through that, and then what happened?
And so in July, when we had our first egg retrieval, the egg and sperm there was no embryo. So it didn't implant. I mean, the sperm the egg didn't allow the sperm in, guys. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm all jumbled up today. The egg didn't want the sperm. So she said no. And then that was it. They waited up until 5 days. They usually like to transfer on the 4th or 3rd day because it was fresh. When you do mini IVF, they don't do frozen, they do fresh.
Gotcha.
Fresh transfers. But the second one was the one, and the 2-week wait was freaking terrible.
Yes. How did you get through the 2-week wait? What were your?
I did everything. You know what? I said, you know what? I'm going to treat this 2-week wait like. What's the word I'm looking for? I told myself I'm going to treat the 2-week wait like this is my last 2 weeks, and I'm getting ready to go to jail. I'm serious, because I said, you know what? If this has worked and the egg has implanted in my uterus, and I have a little baby, a little fetus growing in here, a little embryo, then I'm going to freaking live it up, and that's what I did. And I connected with some people that I hadn't seen in a long time and had some fun. And at this point, I had stopped working. So I was just out there living my best freaking life those 2 weeks. And that was the way I coped with it. And I came home. I didn't watch anything depressing. I didn't watch any baby stories. I used to like to watch TLC and watch baby stories.
Oh my God.
I didn't do any of that. I just watched comedies, things to divert my attention.
Right. Are you like an early tester at all, or did you wait?
No, I waited. I was terrified.
Same. No, it's like, I feel like either there's two camps, right? There's like the early testers and the people that wait. And I was one of the people that waited. I was like, after all this freaking waiting and all these doing everything by the book, I don't want to like go off script and like test on my own, because I was terrified that it would be positive, but like a false positive, or negative and a false negative. So I just like waited to go into the doctor after the 2 weeks.
I waited. Torture. Everybody couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe it. They was like, girl, why don't you just go ahead and test? But the thing was too, that also gave me comfort during that 2-week wait, is that last week, because I got my beta test done on a Friday morning, and that Tuesday, couple days before Friday, I should have gotten my cycle. My menses should have started, and it didn't. And so I said, well, maybe there's something growing in there. I still had my doubts, even though the proof was in the pudding, because I had never missed a period before. It was the first time in 32 years I had missed a period. And when I got that beta done, and then they called me right before they closed, maybe wait all freaking day. And
oh my God, that's the worst.
Like, yes. Oh my gosh. And it's just like, she was whispering because there were other patients still in the clinic. And she was like, oh my God, it's 786. I still remember the number. It was like, I was speechless. I really was.
Yeah.
I was speechless. I didn't have any words. I had like just woken up from a nap. So I was like kind of groggy and I was like feeling like this was like in a dream or something.
Right.
But it was the single best day of my life. One of the best days.
Oh, I love that. I love that. If you don't mind, can we talk about just the pregnancy really quickly?
Mm-hmm.
And then I know you've talked about how you had a traumatic birth. I don't know if you want to get into that at all. I don't want to like stir up anything, but if you want to go there.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I also want to touch on like, do you have any like PTSD from all of this? Because I certainly still do. And I'm just curious if that's how common that is.
Yeah. So for the pregnancy, it was such a nice pregnancy. And every symptom that I needed to keep me comforted that the baby was still growing, I had it. I had every symptom, you guys. Mm-hmm. I lost 15 pounds my first trimester. Mm-hmm. I was so freaking small. I was smaller than I was before I got pregnant. Mm-hmm. And then it was like 6 weeks came and nausea started out of nowhere. And before that, up until 6 weeks, I just had like really sensitive breasts as if it was premenstrual symptoms. Mm-hmm. And it was like clockwork. Every milestone, I would get a new symptom. It was so funny. And the nausea, it was terrible. We have certain smells and oh my gosh, it's terrible to go through, but it just gave me so much comfort. I was like, Lord, please just give me a sign. Mm-hmm. So I got nausea, for up until 13 weeks. And after that, it just, and he made me so beautiful. Like I was so pretty when I was pregnant. And,
I bet.
Oh my gosh. Because, sometimes the babies take so much from moms and their bodies change and they get acne.
Yes.
And I didn't have any of that. It was just such a beautiful pregnancy. And
I love that you own that too. And you say that. That's so awesome that you say that,
Yeah. And I just, oh my God, I think about it all the time because he was born early and I feel gypped a little bit, but yeah, I did. I definitely feel gypped. Yeah. And
I always tell my daughter that she stole, daughters steal your beauty. I was like, I was so much prettier before I became your mom. Now I look like a hag.
Oh, no, not at all. Far from it.
I'm not fishing. I'm just kidding.
But yeah, so it was just such a nice pregnancy. And the flutters began at 16 weeks, right on time. And unfortunately, hubby never got to feel any of the kicks when I got into like 22, 23 weeks where they really just start kicking and everything because I did have him so early. And when I was 24 weeks and I was actually in the hospital for a week before I gave birth to him, I went in at 23 weeks, 5 days, premature labor on a Friday night. And the next Friday, January the 20th is when I went into labor in the evening, about 5:30.
Okay. So how many weeks along were you at that point?
24.
Okay. Were you freaking out?
I was at Washington Hospital Center in DC. They had me in the labor and delivery unit for a week. The first 2 days was very it was so, just thinking about it, it's like watching a movie because it was so freaking uncomfortable. The beds in the freaking labor and delivery area have no cushion. It's just like this freaking sanitary mattress, just enough for you to lay on. And I'm hooked up to all this stuff. The baby monitoring machine, as if I'm getting ready to go into labor at any moment. Well, I was in active labor, but they were able to stop it. And so just monitoring him, and every time he didn't kick or something was wrong with the machine and the heart rate wasn't coming up, I was freaking out. My husband didn't leave my side. He's still trying to run his business, and my parents and stuff, my sister coming down to check on me and everything, my brother-in-law. And the night that I went into premature labor, I was still home by myself because we were in the restaurant business. And so hubby hadn't been home yet. It was around 11 o'clock-ish. He didn't close till 12 a.m. And so he wouldn't get home until 12:30, 1 o'clock. So I was still at home by myself, and I went to the bathroom. I was laying on the couch with the dog, watching movies, go to the bathroom, and I'm urinating. And then after I finish urinating, this gush of blood comes out.
Oh, God.
Freaking out. I'm shaking, trying to call my husband, let him know what happened, and also trying to get him off the phone so I could call 911 just in case. But I ended up being able to get myself to the hospital. I put my pad on. I wasn't in any pain, luckily, which was really how I got to the hospital alone, because I wasn't in any pain. I was just bleeding.
Yeah.
And so I get to the hospital, and luckily the hospital where I went to was 5 minutes within walking distance of the restaurant. It was just so wild how everything happened. And so he rushed over, closed up early, rushed over and everything. And they just had me hooked up on these monitors, and the doctor didn't want to put any fingers in me to test how much I was dilated. And so they kind of just peeked in and looked, and they told me I might have been 2 to 3 centimeters dilated. Mm-hmm. But later on, we found out I was only 1. And so they had to transport me to Washington Hospital Center in DC because that hospital wasn't level 4. And if the baby had have come, they didn't have the clearance medically to take care of a baby that young.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I had to be transported to Washington, DC to be cared for. And it's right, the hospital I was at is right next to Children's Hospital in DC. And so they took really good care of me there, but it was just so nerve wracking. I couldn't brush my teeth for 2 days. I'm like, oh my God, try not to talk to anybody because I was freaking dragging breath all over the place, man. You can't bathe. I couldn't bathe,
Give me those Altoids.
I couldn't do anything. Oh my gosh. And I couldn't drink water, the first 24 hours. I had to suck on ice. That was sucked. And it's just waiting. But after the 2 days was up, then they transferred me to where the mothers go after they have babies. And they said, we're just going to keep you here. And I kept asking the doctors, how long am I going to be here? Am I going to be able to go home on bed rest? And they're like, no, you're not going anywhere. Just get over it. So, quite possibly I would have been in there for the last 4 months of my pregnancy.
Wow.
But he couldn't wait. He had to get out and come out and meet us. And so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
he came
when was he born? Like how far along were you then, or how long were you?
Yes, I was in the hospital. I went in on a Friday at 23 weeks, 4 days, and I gave birth to him exactly the next Friday.
Okay.
So it was a 7-day period at 24 weeks, 4 days. And that was actually inaugural Friday when President Trump was put in the office when I gave birth.
Oh, wow. So did he go straight to the NICU?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And how long was he in there?
4 months, 129 days.
God.
Yeah, 129 days.
Oh, my gosh. Yep. How did you deal with that?
I cried all the time. Infertility made me a big crier. And when I gave birth to him like that, I was even more of a crybaby.
Yeah.
Like, just cried all the time. I remember going down into getting lunch and things like that, going to see him, and I would go in the bathroom. They didn't have bathrooms for the parents in the NICU. You had to go outside of the NICU to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
They were very, very strict about things like that. And so I remember leaving to go home to get some rest. And I just went to that bathroom. I had to pump a little bit, and I was engorged and everything. And I just was crying. It was just always moments like that, crying. The first couple days when I was still in the hospital with him, recovering from the C-section, I couldn't look at him without crying. And the nurses would be trying to hug me and comfort me and stuff. And it just to see him so small and so fragile.
Yes, I was just going to say he must have been so tiny.
12 inches long, 1.9 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
So little. And you can see
look at him now, though.
Oh my gosh. He's a terror. You guys. He's so freaking wild.
His name is Omar Jr., right?
Yes. And he's a boy, and he's everything you can imagine about a little boy.
Yeah. So we were on a Zoom call the other day prepping for our event. He was jumping around in the background, which is so funny because my 4.5-year-old does the same thing. But
oh my gosh, it's so cute. But
I just want to shout out the NICU nurses and doctors, just universally, they're so incredible. I mean, to be able to do that job is just amazing. So big love to all those people out there. Absolutely.
I don't know how they do it. And they perform surgeries in the NICU on these babies. I don't know how they do it.
And even the people you meet too, right? Like I've talked to a lot of people that are still really good friends with their NICU nurse or the parents that were in there at the same time as them. It's really traumatic bonding experience.
Yeah, it definitely is. Some of the nurses that were there when we were there are not there. And it was so crazy because right around halfway point through the NICU journey, I kid you not, there were about 4 or 5 nurses that were all pregnant at the same time. Because, when you're around women so much, your cycles are on the same, a couple days within each other. Then she gets it, then she gets it. They were all right behind each other. It was so wild. And then one of his doctors was actually pregnant too with her 3rd baby. So it was by the time we left, it was just so wild. They were all pregnant at the same time. It was they were really, really sweet and nice, and they were so helpful. And there was a time when my dad went to go see him one day, and they let my dad hold him and stuff. It was just Oh, God bless them, because angels, I'm telling you.
Absolutely. Well, I'm so glad it worked out for you. What a story. I know your story is not over yet. Because you were saying on Instagram the other day that you were maybe going to try again. Is that
Yeah.
something you're considering?
Yes. We don't know when we're going to start, whether it's the end of the summer, the end of the year, or beginning of 2021. We haven't quite figured out everything yet, because we're trying to just get the shop rebuilt and find out what happens with that first before we do anything else, because that will determine whether we'll be able to do it, because we are self-pay when we go through IVF. Insurance, they cover like your testing, but they don't cover the IVF itself. And so what happens with the shop will determine when we try for a second, because I want to do it before I'm 40.
All right, friends, thank you so much for listening today. And thanks again to Monique for sharing her beautiful story. I just wanted to give you guys a heartfelt thank you for all the support and all the great reviews and ratings on Apple Podcasts. That's a way that really helps us get recognized. And the more recognized you are, the more downloads you get, and the more, people we can help by hearing these stories. So if you haven't yet, and you have a minute, please go over to Apple and rate and review this podcast, because it would mean the world to me. So thanks so much, and I'll talk to you guys next time.